All right, thank you for all of your answers to these, and I will go over why it is what it is shortly. So this is a brief history of what we call PEMDAS, and they call it different things in other parts of the world. They don't call it parentheses, they call it brackets. So there's a B there, and there's other differences. But I prefer to think of it not as left to right, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. The acronym is please entertain my dear Aunt Sally, which is fine. But I prefer to write it like this because multiply and divide are the same rank. Add and subtract are the same rank. So you go parentheses and then exponents, and then multiply and divide from left to right as they occur, add and subtract from left to right as they occur. Now, I would like for you to understand why. It has to do with algebra more so than arithmetic. A long time ago, hundreds of years ago, they used to write 4x cubed like that, 4xxx. And then someone got the bright idea, you know what, let's just write 4x, and I'll put a little 3 up there to tell you there's 3 of them multiplied together. However, there is some confusion when you're learning this after the fact. Some folks think that 4x cubed means 4x times 4x times 4x. It does not. If you want to do that, you've got to put it in parentheses like this. And then, of course, you can multiply 4 times 4 times 4, get 64. XXX is x cubed. I want you to think of x. This may help if you ever have to help somebody else. If I have a variable like x, I put it like in parentheses to emphasize that if x has a sign like plus or minus, that is included. And this is what the big deal is. The sign is included with the letter. However, minus x squared does not mean to square minus x. It means you square x and then you negate that. It's going to be negative. So if x is a real number as opposed to imaginary number, which we're not going to talk about today, if x is a real number, if it's not 0, then x squared is going to be positive. Why? Because a negative times a negative or a positive times a positive, that's going to be positive all the time. Oh, a little bit more, just throw some stuff out there for you. Minus 6x cubed means minus 6xxx, 7x plus y squared. You do not multiply 7 times x plus y and then square that. No, this is 7 times the square of x plus y. Minus 11z to the 4th is that, then 8w to the 5th is that. Now, one reason you can think about this as multiply and divide have equal rank. In a sense, dividing is just multiplying by the reciprocal. So x divided by y times z is the same thing as x times 1 over y times z. If you wanted to divide x by y times z, you got to put y times z in parentheses. All right, and just one more example, x divided by y times z squared, and you don't need to put the multiplication sign there when they're letters like this. So it would be that. Now, in arithmetic, what we did with arithmetic was we made it conform to the rules of PEMDAS that we created for algebra to make things simpler. But it turns out it's not necessarily simpler. In fact, I think it's more complicated. I still have students tell me that in high school they learned you multiply before you divide, and their high school teacher told them this is 32 divided by 8. Well, it's not. It's 32 divided by 4, and then that times 2. Now you can, if you want to, just do 32 divided by 4 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Or you can realize that to divide by 4 is to multiply by 1/4, and still 32 times 1/4 is 8, and then times 2. That's why we have the order of operations. And again, if you wanted to divide 32 by 4 times 2, you would have to put it in parentheses like that. Or of course, just look at it and figure it out. Some more examples follow, and I'm going to put this out there on YouTube. In arithmetic, we sometimes use the divided by sign. Sometimes we use a slash. Sometimes we use an X. Well, it's not an X, it's a multiplication sign, and that's pretty common now. So if you wanted to divide 32 by whatever 2 times 4 is, that is represented with putting 2 times 4 in parentheses. If you wanted to divide 32 by 2 times 4 squared, well, before you divide, you're going to have to square that. You got to do 2 times 4 is 8. 8 squared is 64. 32 divided by 64 is same thing as 32 times 1 over 64, or you could just get your calculator out and get the answer much more quickly if you just do 32 divided by 64 on your calculator. Now, the original problem that we started off this lesson with, and this means x equals 7 and y equals -9 and z equals -3. And I want to know the value of minus x squared minus y squared plus z squared. What is the value of that? Now, you remember what I said recently. Think of x as containing its own sign. So if x is positive or negative, when you square it, you're going to get a positive answer. So minus x squared, you can think of it this way, minus y squared, and then plus z squared. Now substitute for x, y, and z their actual values. 7 for x, -9 for y, and -3 for z. So minus 7 squared is -49. And minus -9 squared is minus 81. And plus -3 squared is plus 9. And when you add those together, minus 49 minus 81 is -130. Plus 9 is -121. Some had 139. Some had -139. A lot of people got 23, all kinds of things. What I wanted to convince you of, really, is that most people actually forget how to do this. Okay, I think we've just about got it here. Except I forgot to. Okay, here we go. The fact is, most people have learned this algebra before. This is algebra 1, but almost nobody actually uses algebra in their everyday lives. I don't even use it every day in my life, but when the time is right, then yeah. So this problem here on page 56 is one of the ones I gave you earlier. And notice that on the left-hand side is the problem, and on the right-hand side, that cell is where I put the actual code that you would put into Wolfram Alpha. I really think this is going to allow you to make a much better grade on test 4, which is going to be due next week. So you can either hit the enter key or hit the equal sign. And it says, okay, now what the heck is W? There's no W over here. Right. I invented this technique because to solve something like this, what I really want to know is what is minus x squared minus y squared plus c squared. So I said, you know what? If I just key that in like that, W is minus x squared minus y squared plus c squared, then I already know x, y, and z, and it tells me that W is -121. And I hope we all understand why that's so. More recently, I discovered that Wolfram Alpha will take a different sort of instruction. And I didn't catch that minus sign at first. So in this case, I say minus x squared minus y squared plus c squared, comma, where, I learned this recently, x is 7, y is -9, and z is -3. Click on the equal sign, and this is going to tell you that's pretty cool. Yeah. And this, again, is on page 56. The other problem that I gave was problem 1, and that's simply this guy right here. And this is what you key into Wolfram Alpha to do -3 squared. You do -3 squared. You type exactly what that says there with the caret right before the exponent. I put number 4 in here because I simply wanted you to see the absolute power of technology as far as speed goes. I'm going to give you a ridiculous fraction here. This is pretty ridiculous. And it turns out no one wants to work this by hand. I have never worked it by hand. I could, I don't want to. It's a waste of time. But you see how the exact result is kind of tricky. All right. You'll need this information in order to successfully complete the take-home test, which, as I mentioned, is due in a week or so. I may give you a problem that says remove parentheses, and the code for Wolfram Alpha is simplify. Oh, if I have an equation I want you to solve, the code word is solve. And a lot of times it looks exactly like that. It has fractions in your equation. You can put the numerators and possibly the denominators, if you need to, in parentheses. There's different kinds of factoring that you can do. My belief is that almost nobody is going to have to do one of these. And I think it's sort of a not good use of our time for me to go through and teach people how do you get this factored without using technology, because you are literally, in my opinion, never going to have to do that. Here's what's going to save you some points if you pay attention. I'm going to have a problem on the take-home test that's going to be similar to number 13. And guess what? If you want to see what I want for an answer, do this similar problem. I'll be more specific here shortly. Now, you'll notice this has two answers. I'm going to scroll forward to this page 59 and 60 has the same problem. So alert, this is going to be important to you. What I recommend that you do here is work all the practice problems on page 59 and 60 and see if you get the same answer that I got. This is going to give you some practice at Wolfram Alpha. I have the problems on the left and the code on the right. And if you get what I've got in red there, you're in good shape. Notice what I have for number 13, the answer. I have both of these. Some people I predict are going to put only one of those. And some people are going to do this. They're going to click on approximate forms and get that. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for simply that. Okay. And the other problems, if you put a date like July 4th, 1776, hyphen July 4th, 2016, it's going to tell you how many days there are between that. 87,000 something days. Holy cow. You're pretty good, I believe, at doing sigma because we had a test on that fairly recently. So the take-home test itself is on page 62 and 63. That is the actual take-home test. Furthermore, I have put it in your Canvas account under Files, F-I-L-E-S. And I'm going to show you where that is here shortly. Well, there it is. Okay. I took the take-home test out of here. I put it in a Word and I put it in a PDF. If you click on the Word, if you are able to do that, you will see something like this. It's a little different, doesn't have all that room for the answers, and here's why. I'm going to talk about the rest of them, problems 15 to 32 on Thursday. I put an answer sheet in there, blank answer sheet. So all you have to do is make your answers, plug them in, save it to your device, and then I'm going to get out of this here. And then what? Then you're going to deposit it. Now, how do I deposit it? Well, it turns out it's going to be, let me get the right class here, just so you'll see I've got your actual class right here. Under assignments, this is assignment 4. And there it is. It's test 4, available until April 27th. And that's when it's due. And I will show you later how to submit this in here. Some people put it in the wrong place, and that's just not going to work. So again, what I recommend you do before you tackle this take-home test, I want you to get really good at using Wolfram Alpha. And I put a couple of options in here for these. And we'll talk more about that shortly.